Lori, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Anish. It's great to be here.
So technology is really at the heart of every conversation in business these days, right? People are worried about maybe being disrupted or thinking about how they can transform their operations. So how should business leaders be thinking about technology strategy?
So first of all, the speed of technology is accelerating. I think when business leaders think about their strategy, first of all, it's important to understand what are the emerging technologies, what are the capabilities that they can provide, and how do I think about that both offensively and defensively? Where can it maybe accelerate my strategy and vision, and where potentially could it disrupt it? So part of that begins with building digital fluency inside the business. So for example, I, as the Chief Information Officer for JPMorgan Chase, sit at the operating committee. And what's really important there is I can bring new emerging technologies and share what's really happening in the industry, how things are accelerating. So as I'm also listening to the business strategies, we can make sure that we're moving at the speed that we need to in terms of adopting them. That's just one example. I think it's imperative that every business leader really understands what are some of the emerging technologies, capabilities, and how their business should adopt them. I think another one is thinking about what's your tolerance for risk. Driving innovation, adopting new technologies has some risks associated with it. So being thoughtful about your risk tolerance and how you're going to mitigate that so that you can speed innovation, but do it in a safe and secure way. And then finally, talent. Talent is the crux of how to think about, not only from the right technology talent, but also from on the business side. Are your business leaders really understanding and owning understanding technology and thinking about proactively how it's going to affect their business strategies?
Right, and that's an important point, right? Because I think historically people would have thought about, well, the tech guys deal with tech and we deal with the business and then we call them when we need them or things like that. But really, having a seat at the table is important, not just to increase fluency for the business of technology, but also to be at the table as business strategies being discussed so you can help play a part in that, right?
That's right. And also how work gets done these days. So if we're really going to move at a pace and speed, and you want to be able to meet the needs of a customer, which are only accelerating their expectations, you really want technology and product working together with operations, everyone working side by side in a very agile construct to be able to deliver those capabilities as soon as you can to the market. And that really challenges some of the ways we've traditionally worked.
Right. So a lot of buzzwords out there. People talk about cloud and APIs and machine learning and all that sort of thing. What are the handful of technologies that every business leader really needs to become much more fluent with?
I really think the speed is driven fundamentally because we've seen this confluence of emerging technologies that are really hitting mature adoption. And so if I think about just data, we have a lot of data at JPMorgan Chase, the ability to unleash the value of that data. So we've seen a lot of maturity in big data capabilities, including how you can use and consume unstructured data. So that's just one element. If I think then about applying that data in applying it in artificial intelligence, machine learning, so I can add more insights into my business workflows. The fact that I can do that because I can accelerate the massive amount of compute that I need to process that data, I can use a cloud computing construct or a model. So just to deliver next generation machine learning insights into a business process, I'm tapping on big data capabilities, I'm tapping on artificial intelligence, machine learning advancements, as well as cloud computing capabilities to deliver that. I think finally too, what we're seeing from customer expectations is it's delivering this rich engagement that can cross really an ecosystem across companies. And so we're really seeing this evolution of APIs really becoming the de facto standard of how customers want to connect with us and how we also connect on the inside. So those would be the key technologies that I would.
Yeah, and as you say, it's not just one of them, right? It's all of those coming together that really do enable you much more faster, in a much more agile way, a much more nimble way, et cetera, right? Let's talk about talent, right? Because all of that is relatively new, right? You have to think about the kind of technologists you need at your firm and also what kind of business leaders you need around that too. So how do you think about talent?
Yeah, and I think depending on the size of your organization, that can vary. So I would start with, there's the kind of technologists that like to create the next generation technology. And for us, we need a few of those. And so, for example, as we were building blockchain, we really wanted to be leaders in developing an advancement of blockchain capabilities. We needed very specialized software engineers that understood that technology very deeply. We also need general expertise and deep expertise around topics like cloud computing, cybersecurity, data scientists to drive the many strategies that we have as well. But a lot of our technologists take these technologies and actually apply them to solve a business problem. So you need technologists that are good at understanding the core technologies and applying them to what's relevant for your business. So I think when you think about your overall talent strategy and technology, it's very closely tied to, some of the core capabilities, what's really competitively differentiating for you, and how you need technology to help drive that.
And for some of our listeners that work in smaller companies, right, that traditionally have maybe outsourced a lot of their technology, I think one of the points you're making is that even if you have another firm doing the execution of that, you still need to have enough talent within the firm to be able to drive that strategy, to be able to oversee that work, et cetera. You can't just rely on the third party for everything, right?
That's right. And one of the advances that we're seeing, whether it's cloud computing so that you can consume infrastructure resources without having to have the big capital investments, or you can work with a third party that's a software as a service provider so that you can consume business processes directly, not even running in your data centers, but running in a cloud type environment. You still need technologists that really understand how to integrate those across the ecosystem, connect them into your core company and applications, and deliver that end-to-end business service. It's also important from understanding the risk and managing those relationships as well. So the big difference you see sometimes between big companies and smaller companies is more about how much you actually build and the talent that you can get to support that. You still need that talent that understands how to integrate and deliver that end-to-end experience.
Right, right. So you've talked about risk tolerance, right? And one of the biggest risks you can have is trying to do too much or trying to do everything all at once. So what advice would you have for business leaders about how to prioritize their efforts? You can't do everything, right? How do they think about investments and sort of which technology efforts are going to have the biggest impact on their business?
I think when you look at your overall business strategy and where are the things, so if you're a company that's really trying to focus on delivering the next generation retail consumer experience, you're going to want to really make sure you're focusing on your data, your digital capabilities, and being able to deliver those in a very agile way. If we're working on another business that you're really transforming the underlying, you might have been a company that doesn't traditionally had a lot of technology that's been front and center, and really understanding sort of building out the basics, understanding your data, understanding how your data is getting consumed. I think you would focus more on the building blocks of understanding your data, building out, the next generation, taking some of your big traditional applications, breaking them down into more manageable chunks, something we call microservices. And all of that helps in the speed and delivery for the future.
Right, right. So really taking your business strategy, looking at the outcomes you're trying to drive, and then working backwards from there. That makes sense. Any final advice for business leaders in terms of how they should think about technology?
The one thing I would say is really inspect where technology is aligned in your organization. It's really critical, again, that there's that seat at the table, that they understand what are the business capabilities that you're trying to deliver so they can have a commercial mindset in terms of making sure they're really prioritizing against that business strategy, helping getting them engaged in how to reduce friction points with your customers, how to think about new technology in terms of how it can help deliver new products and services for your businesses, really building on talent. Everybody has to be great when it comes to talent in technology, and so really understanding that, and then building digital fluency back into the business. A lot of companies are focusing on not only how they have to upskill, but in many cases reskill for the workforce of the future. So those would be some of the advice I would give a business leader.
Lori, thanks again so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Anish. It's great to be here.